Is Vanderbilt starting to thrive in this new era of college football? Well, I think so.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. And on this episode, thanks for listening, by the way. And on this episode, we discuss the fact that Vandy football is on the rise and others are starting to kind of take notice. Chris Lowe spent a day with Clark Lea and the Vanderbilt Commodores, and he wrote an article on it. And I thought it was a very well-written article, and he did a good job with that, displaying everything that Vandy's kind of gone through since Clark Lea took over. But Vandy's playing with a chip on their shoulder now, and they're looking in prime position to have their first back-to-back winning seasons since 2012 and 2013. But how are they going to do it? What are they going to do? What have they done to give us all of this confidence that they're doing that? Why is everybody kind of starting to see it now? What are they seeing? Those are all the questions we're going to ask, or actually, that's all the questions that are being asked. Like why? Like why do you feel like Vanderbilt's like that? We're going to talk about some of those answers, but also we're going to glance around the conference just to see who's on Vandy's schedule that we need to be worried about. Who's the spring standouts on Vandy's schedule? Like there's some players that might be emerging in the SEC landscape that we didn't see coming at first. So we'll take a look at that. And also the Vandy boys, they might have a little bit of swagger again. They took down the Dogs in game 1. Can they keep this up? Georgia, they've hit 100 home runs so far this year. But anyway, thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day, especially today, and especially you everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So this article by Chris Lowe, okay, I thought this was a very well-written piece, and I wanted to react to it because I think the topic is really, really good. I think the topic is very accurate. And a lot of people, I think a lot of people are thrown off by it because perception is often reality. And the perception of Vanderbilt still is they're a bottom dweller. They'll never win anything of significance. They're always going to be that circled win on your schedule. They're never going to get a top flight coach. Clark Lea got lucky with Diego Pavia. They caught people off guard. I can hear all of those narratives, and I do hear all of those narratives. And when people find out that I host Locked On Vandy, they're like, why? And then they ask me like, yeah, Vandy's going to come crashing back down to earth, aren't they? And I'm like, well. And I know they have. I know that the precedent is not good because this would be the first time they've had back-to-back winning seasons since James Franklin was here in 2013 or 12 and 13, and so it is. It's very much warranted right now. Some of the doubt, but again, I see something different. And normally, if I hadn't taken on this show, I probably wouldn't have seen it. I probably would have just been like, yeah, they might be right. I don't know. He's going to have to kind of prove it. But I don't know. Like there's something different within this program. And I think you could see, and I paid attention to Vandy because I live here in Nashville. I just wasn't as close to paying attention to Vandy as I am now since I've been doing the show. But the situation they inherited from Derek Mason was completely awful. Like that, the train had fell off the tracks. It had wrecked. It was turned over and mangled on the side of the tracks there in the woods, like flipped upside down, like rusted out. It was a bad program when he took over. And Derek Mason had a good start to it. To his tenure, and it just kind of fell apart. And some of that was COVID, and some of that was the fact that Vanderbilt, I think, was as a university and as a university administration, were going through some things where they weren't feeling like athletics was worth their time. They just wanted to be an academic powerhouse, and that was it. And so that wasn't happening. But and I think they decided. I think Clark Lea has shown them that they, hey, he's a Vanderbilt guy, he can have success, and he can help this team bring in some success, and he can get Vanderbilt to the point of like a Stanford, or like Duke is an elite university academically, and they have an elite basketball team with a pretty decent football team, right? Their football team hasn't been great, but basketball has been elite for a few decades now. So they've shown that they can do that. And so for Vanderbilt, they're starting to show, and they're thriving a little bit now, because I think people are starting to realize, I think the light bulb is coming on for a lot of people, including Candace Story-Lee, who I think is slowly starting to, build this program up, market it, things like that. Now, has she made her fair share of mistakes? Yes, absolutely. It's not perfect, never will be, never expect it to be. But if Vanderbilt can just kind of get themselves into the NIL landscape, I think, and I've talked about it on the show, I think they have potential to do some real damage, because if they can change the perception of who they are, because I think the last piece of it is showing that they can win fairly consistently and going to bowl games year in and year out. I think that's the goal. I think you have to just start with, hey, let's make bowl games every year. And, I get that Diego Pavia and then want to, their goal is obviously national championship or make the playoffs and, on down the line. But I think realistically, you're just not quite there yet as a program, and that's okay. From where you were to, season before last, you were just about at rock bottom. And we weren't sure if Clark Lea was the right guy. And I think a lot of people are still not sure that Clark Lea's the right guy. And I don't know where that comes from. I don't know what else he has to do except for go out and do it again. I think you win 8 games, you can show that, hey, we can do this, right? And I think that's going to make a lot of people happy. What's really cool also is the fact that Vanderbilt as a university, for the first time, has a college football team that was ranked, albeit briefly, but they were ranked. Had a college basketball team, men's and women's, competed in the NCAA tournament, first round knockout. But considering where these two programs were a very short time ago, a year, it's pretty impressive. And then a baseball team that is, I think they've made 18 straight postseason tournaments or regionals at least. And I think they're poised to, make another run here. We'll talk about them later. So this is going to be, kind of a unique situation. So it's a university that's doing the right things to help their teams thrive. And this is everything that they're doing doesn't even take place on the field yet. Like, they're raising money, they're building facilities, they're making things good for the fans. I wish they'd bring back the swinging scoreboard that was held by 2 cranes. I think that should be a staple of Vanderbilt football. No, I kid. But they're starting to get involved in the NIL. They're starting to get their facilities up to grade. And I know people are like, well, it's about time. Well, it's never too late. You just need to do it when you do it. And they're showing that they're getting serious. But here's the thing, though. As college football is evolving, I think it's good that Vandy is evolving with it. I think Vandy is also. I think for this football team, especially, Clark Lea is determined that, hey, and he said this in a quote. He's like, we're not going to out Alabama. We're not going to out Georgia. We have to do things a little bit differently. And that is, I think that's a good philosophy to have. Like, you have to, if you're going to thrive, you can't try to be somebody else. You just can't. And I think that's where Vandy has gone right in this whole scenario. I think that's why they've turned things around, because they weren't trying to play the same game. In Major League Baseball, there's surprise teams that come through the postseason and win. Like, I know the Rays didn't end up winning, but their payroll is not anywhere near what the Yankees or the Dodgers or the Red Sox. They're not going to there's different ways to be successful in Major League Baseball, just like there's different ways to be successful in college football. Now, in NIL, they're going to have to spend a little bit more, and Ohio State's proving that. But until there's guardrails, I think you're just going to have to take these marginal gains and just kind of run with them, and take these little wins and turn them into slightly bigger wins, and so on and so forth until you do get to that point. But I think doing it a little bit differently is the way to go, and I think that was the right move. I think getting, not some young hotshot offensive coordinator that's just going to try to do the same thing that everybody else is doing, I think is something that, I think Clark Lea took a chance on. Like, he's like, okay, I'm going to hire Tim Beck. And a lot of people are like, what? Tim Beck? And that was a move that ended up being really good. And it's the reshaping of the player personnel stuff, the analytic stuff, the player analysis, the scouting departments, the analysts that work with the coordinators and making sure they get every ounce of scouting, the philosophy, all that stuff. Like, it is, I think, very meticulously planned. And as I laid out in the overhaul, it is something that I really, really think that's benefiting this program. I'm really excited that, they're finding their way, right? They're finding their way. You have to be, and Tim Beck said this a little bit different. And Tim Beck said this, and I thought this was a good quote within the article. He said, "I know Coach Lea doesn't believe that we can be like every other SEC team philosophically and find ways to break through to the top." He said, you have to be a little bit different, and we were a little bit unique, and I'm not one of these young offensive coordinators that's just trying to score as many points every game. You have to find ways to reduce the margins a little bit, so you've got to play complementary football. So we still want to be fun and exciting, which I feel like we are, but we're not going to be in a huge hurry. We led the nation in fewest turnovers last year, which was huge for us because the matchups that we had player to player are not still there yet, but we've got to be smart about what we do on both sides of the ball. So what that means is this. They held the ball. Time of possession was a huge stat for Vanderbilt, and that led to a lot of wins. If the other team doesn't have the ball, they can't score, and that puts pressure psychologically on the other team. So being unique, being different, being exciting, I think they went about it being ball control excitingly. I think, Diego Pavia helped that at, being who he is, and everything that with his game, with his attitude, which is very contagious throughout the university, which is phenomenal. And his leadership qualities and all of that. I think you take the full package that you get with Diego Pavia. It don't matter what you do offensively, you're going to have an exciting offense because he's going to get everybody fired up about it. So this is something that, defensively, you got to be a little bit differently. Organizationally, you got to be a little bit different. You've got to find ways to find an edge that's not just like the other guys. And unfortunately for NIL, you're going to have to kind of get in there and compete with the big boys, but you're going to have to find I think the ace in the hole is your scouting department and finding those hidden gems. Like Trey Richardson could be an absolute hidden gem for Vanderbilt. He came out of Division II. He was recruited by Tim Beck and Jerry Kill out of high school to go to New Mexico State. Those are the things you have to do as Vanderbilt until you can start to build. I think a program that a lot of teams should look towards is what Ole Miss has done. And the fact that they got more highly involved in NIL as it went along too with Lane Kiffin. And when he took over, they weren't a great program. Now, they weren't a perennially bad program like Vanderbilt was, but they're a program that was very inconsistent, and they'd go to a bowl game and then they'd go 3-9, and then they'd go to a bowl game. They go to a couple bowl games, like small bowl games, and they go 3-9 a couple seasons. Like Vanderbilt was kind of all over the place. Not Vanderbilt, Ole Miss was kind of all over the place. So anyway, I think, and I'm going to continue. This article has so much in it. I can't fit it into an entire episode because I got other things I want to get to and discuss that are kind of shape and mold the perception of Vanderbilt. But I'll leave you with this. Vanderbilt, I'll leave you with this quote too. I think we as a program, me in particular, can't help but operate with a chip on our shoulder. And you can't help but bathe in the doubt that surrounds you. So what that quote means is this. We're going to take that doubt. We're going to use it to fuel the fire. And we're going to play with a chip on our shoulder. And we're going to come after you. And this team showed that last season. They showed that. They showed that resolve. They showed that chip on the shoulder, except for the Georgia State game. They were like, you know what? And there's a quote that I can't put on here, but Diego Pavia said, basically, watch us. You want to doubt Coach Lee? You want him fired? You want all this stuff? Well, watch us win. Watch us do what we got to do. And I think that's really, really good. I think if Vanderbilt can play with that edge, they're going to be pretty good. I said it about baseball. They got to play with edge. They're doing it. Basketball is starting to do that. Now football, they started to do it, but they can continue to get more edge and play with that chip because now they're going to be targeted. So anyway, we'll talk more about this article on other episodes. We've got plenty of time between now and the start of football season to kind of break down all the different ways that I think is going to lead to one thing. Vandy is thriving right now, and I think they're on the rise. So who's on their schedule, though? Is there potential problems on their schedule? Who can cause those problems? And we'll talk about that next. All right. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? You can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with a Fire TV Stick 4K device. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Plus Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty, Black Ops 6 to Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. So with Wi-Fi 6 and 6E and auto low latency mode advanced technology, Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds you need to stay competitive. And with 4K streaming, you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. And you can play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of the console. Already have a console? A Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel along with you to take with you wherever you will plug in. And host with hardcore gaming experience, man, if you're one of those guys and you like to play and all that stuff, it can be a game changer. If you have a little bit of experience or like, hey, you just play a game and then watch a show, or I mean, there's a lot of great entertainment choices out there, and there's a lot of things that you can do on the Fire TV Stick 4K. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller is required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We appreciate you guys. You everydayers are incredible. The views have been up. Some subscribers are starting to jump on board. The show is thriving. The university is thriving. All the programs are thriving. Let's continue to go this way, right? And let's make this thing what it is, an absolute powerhouse. So 247 did an article. And I'm just a reactor. I'm not really much of a journalist, but I'm a reactor, and I like to react to things, and I like to tell you my thoughts and my opinions and all that stuff. But one of the things that kind of really interested me is Grant Hughes at 247. He did a piece about the SEC spring standouts, and he went through all the programs and who was the guy that the teams decided, hey, this was the biggest standout. So for Vandy, not surprising, it is Bryson Coleman, right? He was, he was a little bit difficult to project. You couldn't cover. Well, we talked about him all spring. He was just uncoverable. He's somebody that I think is going to make 12 personnel a thing for Vanderbilt. And so he's going to, He's gonna follow in Eli Stowers' footsteps. I wouldn't be shocked if you saw both of those guys on the field at the same time, given Vandy's lack of, I don't want to say quality depth, but like given Vandy's lack of who they figure is consistent. I wouldn't be surprised, but I'll talk more about Bryson Coleman on later episodes. I want to focus on some opponents here. Okay. So I'm going to flash up the schedule real quick as I do this. Okay. South Carolina is the first conference game. Then you got Alabama, LSU, Missouri, Texas, Auburn, Kentucky, and Tennessee. So the obvious: Lenore Sellers, Ty Simpson, Garrett Nussmeier, Arch Manning. Those are the obvious ones. Jackson Arnold for Auburn. Let's just go ahead and say it. Those are the obvious ones. So I don't really want to, I don't really think we need to talk about those guys. But what we do need to talk about is this. For Missouri, and this is, stop me if you've heard this one. They have another star receiver, right? And I know you guys are all shocked, but Kevin Coleman is somebody that you need to watch out for Mizzou. He caught 74 passes for 932 receiving yards. He transferred in from Mississippi State last season, and he is establishing himself as wide receiver one. So he is a pro, and he's going to be a problem for other teams. So he's a name to watch out for when, and I'm sure John Miller of Locked On Mizzou, if you want to hear more about Kevin Coleman, check him out. All right, Kentucky, Kendrick Law. Not surprised there. He transferred in from Alabama. He's showing he's a wide receiver. He's showing some promise over there. Now I don't know how good Kentucky's offense is really going to be. I don't know that Zach Calzada is the right guy. I don't know what that program is kind of. They're a little bit in flux over there as a football program. I think Mark Stoops is. I don't think he did himself any favors there. I have a feeling it's all going to be receivers. For South Carolina, it's Brian Rowe is emerging as he's a 4-star true freshman. He's going to be somebody that when you look at South Carolina's passing game, you can say, okay, well, they got at least one weapon in the passing game, and maybe he can do some things to help out Lenore Sellers. He's a natural route runner. He plays well in space, and I'm going to preview a lot of these teams as we go. But I think this is going to be somebody that is going to be a problem for other people. You look at, well, I know Georgia fans are not happy about Xavier Story being one of Arkansas standouts, but Auburn, Eric Singleton, not surprising there. He was good at Georgia Tech. He was the number one transfer portal wide receiver this offseason. And, well, he's showing why. So that's somebody that Vanderbilt's going to have to contend with. But given the fact that I don't know that Hugh Freeze is a reliable play caller, I'll believe that when I see it, because they had great receivers last year. They just really couldn't take advantage of it. So that's going to be something that we watch out for as well. LSU tight end Bauer Sharp. He's somebody that has emerged in the spring. He was the number 11 tight end in the portal this year. He played at Oklahoma, and he has done every bit of that at spring practice for the Tigers. He's expected to start at tight end. He's been really, really good, and he can be a good red zone target and a tough matchup for defenses, as he has a lot of ability there. Then you have, I'm looking down the list here, Tennessee. Well, other than trying to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback, which I've heard Avery Johnson from Kansas State, who's about to enter the portal probably. Usually when there's rumors, that usually happens. But if he enters the portal, ends up at Tennessee, I think they're going to be better than they were with Nico, because I'm a big fan of Avery Johnson. I thought he led the Wildcats, and the Wildcats are a quality program. Kansas State is a quality program. So it's not like they're taking some shot in the dark here. But when he gets there, or whatever happens at quarterback, they're going to have Ethan Davis to be able to rely on. So that's good. He's 6'5", 250. He's a matchup problem. Oklahoma, John Mateers. That's not surprising. Texas, defensively, Jelani McDonald. He's going to be somebody back there, and he's going to be good, man. He's going to be a hitter. He's going to be able to play that deep safety. He's physical. He's going to be outstanding. Isaiah Horton for Alabama. No surprise there. He was great. And if you live in the Middle Tennessee area, you probably know that name. But he's been great. He was great at Miami. He's great at Alabama. No surprise there. You add him to Ryan Williams and Gertie Bernard. Well, that's going to be a tough wide receiver core to cover. And now you got Ryan Grubb, and you got probably Ty Simpson, who is perfect for Ryan Grubb's offense. That's going to be scary. So that's kind of a look at who is going to stand out for against Vanderbilt. That's a very brief look at some of those guys. So I'm going to preview some of these teams a little bit deeper as we go, and I might have some crossovers lined up. So, but anyway, baseball, shall we? This show, it got late early, as Yogi Berra would say. We'll be right back. We'll talk about baseball, how they got their swagger back. All right, wrapping up the show here really quickly. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen. We appreciate you every dayers, and if you're a loyal third segment listener, we appreciate that as well. At Coach Burton 36 is my personal. At Locked On Vandy is the show accounts, and at Coach Corey Burton on Instagram if you really want to go that route. So, Georgia started a Thursday through Saturday series with UGA, and Vanderbilt's been kind of in flux a little bit. They've had a bit of an identity crisis. They've had, I don't know. It's been weird. They've been really good pitching. They've been pretty good hitting, and then other games downright awful hitting. But it was going to be a challenge anyway. Georgia comes in. They've had over 100 homers this season, so they're a power team. And J.D. Thompson shut him down. And Brody Johnson got him a little bit of swagger back. Yeah, he hit a home run. And I think he's been slumping for a little while. I think he's been struggling to find his way and find his groove. And that's normal for a freshman. They hit a wall a little bit in college baseball because it's more games, more pressure, things like that. But it is, he's got a little bit of swagger, right? He hit this ball, and he knew it was gone immediately, and he started waving his arms in the air, and he left the batter's box kind of with that like swagger a little bit, like he kind of pimped it a little bit, as they say, and he is. I think that's what Vandy needs, and I've said it. Vandy needs that edge. They need that edge. They need teams to kind of hate them. They need that fuel. They need that, like, oh, this team hates us, and oh, it's a gritty game, and oh, they're throwing at us, and they didn't like that, and but they need that. And so I was happy to see that he acted that way. Not usually. Do you want them showboating all the time and all that stuff? But Vandy's a team that kind of needs that, and he was, again, just the fact that they're just playing with a lot better energy, I think, is better. And they won 3-1 against the 5th ranked Georgia Bulldogs. They held, and Georgia was actually, this game was really low scoring, really low, offensively for both sides. I mean, Vandy had only had one hit through 6 innings, and then Brody Johnson stepped in and just hit one to the moon. And it kind of like the energy really kind of shifted. And they really just kind of built into that lead. It was a solo home run, but it was a blast, and it was kind of like a wake-up call almost. And that's kind of what did it a little bit, right? And it's that chip, it's that swagger, it's that whatever that they need to play with. And that carried over to the mound. Like I think they picked up a little bit of that from J.D. Thompson. He went 8 innings, surrendered just 5 hits, and he struck out 14 batters, gave up 1 run. I mean, he was brilliant as well, and the defense was outstanding. You don't have to play much defense when you strike out 14 batters, but it was one of those dream games where you get a dominant pitching performance, and then you get and it was still low scoring, which is fine. If you're having a dominant pitching performance, you don't need it to be high scoring. But I think the way they got their 3 runs, I think will help fuel them moving forward, because they're starting to have fun. They're starting to have a little bit of energy. They're starting to kind of realize, hey, we got to play with that same passion that the football team played with, that the basketball teams played with. We got to play with that same energy, that same chip, that same edge. And I think if they continue to do that, good things are going to happen for this ball club. So very exciting. We'll see how game 2 and game 3 goes. I think it is Cody Bowker in game 2, and will probably be Connor Fennell in game 3. If I'm not mistaken, I can't guarantee that, but I think it's Cody Bowker should be today in game 2. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing this Vandy team, this Vandy program, this Vandy athletic program thrive. So with that, we hope you have a great weekend. We'll come back on. We'll come back to see you. Hope you have a great Easter. Happy Good Friday. And we'll come at you soon. We'll talk to you later. We'll talk at you later. And with that, peace.